Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Lisa Matheson, board member of the U.S. Green Building Council.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lisa Matheson. I serve on the USGBC Board of Directors, and I'm very pleased to welcome you to this morning's Master Speakers Series session. The Master Speaker Series is our 10th revival. It's where we get to connect and learn from each other, and it's where we get to meet the next great innovators and thought leaders in the industry. So about 15 years ago, before the turn of the century, I love saying that, I was working on a project in Santa Barbara. It was the Bren School of Environmental Science Management. And the school and the design team said, wow, we want to make this building sustainable. We want to guide the design process around the ideas of sustainability. How do we do that? And we decided to use this new rating system that was out there called LEED. And it was great because it gave us the topics, it defined the issues, and it gave us metrics that we could use to measure, to guide the design process and measure our success. So that was the beginning of LEED. That turned out to be one of the first LEED Platinum buildings. And as we all know, over time, the LEED rating system has gone through several versions. It's been improved. But I think today what we're going to hear about is arguably the next great innovation since LEED was started. And LEED's been around metrics and around documenting those metrics, but we haven't really been able to see those metrics in real time and kind of live with them in real time, and that's what we're going to hear about. So our Master Speaker session today is with two of the visionaries of U.S. Green Building Council, Scot Horst and Mahesh Ramanajan. Mahesh is GBCI's president, and he's the COO of USGBC, and Scot Horst is USGBC's chief product officer. Together, they have a vision for expanding the value of certification and performance across a wide spectrum, from building performance to infrastructure to defining the value of a green building portfolio. So please join me in welcoming Mahesh Ramanajan and Scot Horst.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here, especially so early. I especially appreciate the women in the audience that are here and aren't at the Women in Green breakfast, because I know that is always a big draw. I'm excited to be here and talk to you today about something that matters a lot to all of us, building performance. Sorry, let me go back here. We're very lucky to do the work we do because our work has meaning. Meaning is the collection of two very important things, purpose and action. You have purpose. There's something that you intend to do, something that you want to have happen, and then you do it. That creates meaning. We're lucky we get to do that because a lot of people just have to work. They don't get to do that. This is a picture of my grandfather. I especially enjoyed putting this picture together because I've had these pictures around for years. My grandmother gave them to me a long time ago, but they were these old negatives. I'd never turned them into anything. My grandfather and my grandmother were people of purpose. They were Mennonites who then my grandfather went on to become a Methodist minister, and he cared a lot about people. He always had purpose in his life. He almost made no money. He made very little money most of his life, but he really cared about people. I wanted to show you them because when they were born, the population of the world was estimated to be about 1.4 billion people. Today, the population of India is estimated to be about 1.2 billion. So in a very short period of time, something gigantically significant is happening. See, change, we like to think in the work that we do that we need to create change or that we need to make change happen. But change is happening. Change is a roaring train. Change is moving down the tracks at such an outrageous speed that we're never going to stop it. The question is, can we guide it? How do we help it happen? Can we shift it? You see, change is actually getting memorialized in buildings. The picture on the left is Fortaleza, Brazil in 1974. The one on the right is Fortaleza, Brazil 2014. I've got a lot of pictures like this. I'm just going to show you these. This one is the Bund in Shanghai, China in 1980 on the left, 2014 on the right. So the year I graduated from college to today, the Bund has been built. It's been memorialized. The change has happened. Can we guide that change as it gets memorialized into the future? What ties us together? Why are we in this room? Why are we at this conference? Because we have a way, we have a system that we use that holds us together, that keeps us singing a similar song, that helps us know that we're moving in the same direction. Our power is in our numbers. We love to tell our numbers at USGBC. We certify 1.7 billion square feet every day. We've been doing it since January 2010. We've got 60,000 projects around the world in 150 countries. We love those numbers because those numbers signify that we're doing something together that's guiding change. That's important to us. Now we need to clarify a few things about how we're guiding that change. I believe that it's incumbent upon us to constantly challenge ourselves to think in new ways to make sure that what we're doing is really making a difference. So there are two words I want to tell you about that I think we need to talk about how they fit in our lives and our work. One is measurement. The other one is feedback. Now these words, we use them all the time, but they aren't meant to work by themselves. They work in a set of issues and other words and things that we do. Feedback is a really interesting one. Just to give you a sense of feedback not being something that works by itself only, I think the number is, I don't know how many millions of people have Fitbits or feedback mechanisms that they're wearing on their arm. How many in the room have one on right now? A number of people. I think the statistic that I read was that half of the people that buy a mechanism like that in order to receive feedback stop using it within the year. So feedback by itself isn't enough, nor is measurement by itself enough. These things work together. Let me just give you a sense of how things work with a few of the really regular things that we have in our life as a set of things. We have a recipe. You want to make food, so you have a recipe, and then you have a measuring cup, and you use the measuring cup to make a meal. And we use the recipe and the measuring cup as a way to communicate to each other that we can make the same thing multiple times, or that I can hand you something so you can make it too. We do it so we can collectively continue to do similar things. Or music is another example. You have a score, a piece of music, you have a metronome, and that keeps the beat for you. You have an instrument. These things work together in terms of feedback and measurement to make music. Or you have a plan, and the plan is to build a box. And you cut the piece of wood, you measure and cut the piece of wood in order to make the box. The point is that it's the purpose and the action that creates the thing that we're about. But measurement is an essential role. Measurement and feedback are these essential pieces about what we're doing. They're part of a great relationship that we need to recognize the fullness of. You're going to start to hear this word platform a lot, because at USGBC we're building a platform of all of these different things that are, it's a single place where you can come do multiple things in order to meet your intention. So I'm passionate about performance. I grew up in rural Minnesota, and I used to listen to the opera every Saturday on the Met broadcast. I'd lie in the living room of my parents' house on the floor and listen to the opera. But I'd never seen one until I went to college and was given tickets to go see Luciano Pavarotti and Dame Joan Sutherland at Chicago Lyric Opera. And because I was given tickets, it was someone that was wealthy that had a seat in the orchestra, so it was really quite something. And I was struck by how different it was to actually be there and see a performance versus what it was like to be listening to it all those years. So I'm sitting there, and Luciano Pavarotti, I don't know if any of you have heard him, or you heard him when he was alive, but he had this outrageous voice because he had such amazing overtones in the way he sang that no matter where you were in the hall, it always felt like the sound was in your face. And Dame Joan Sutherland, too, she's a huge woman with this powerful voice. And I'm sitting there, this isn't them, but I'm sitting there listening to this, and the sound is so amazing. At one point I realized these two creatures, they look like dinosaurs. They're standing there like screaming at the top of their lungs at each other. And I get completely lost in it. It's like the sound reaches inside me, grabs my soul, and I went, I have to do this. It was that moment that I decided I had to sing opera. So I did. I went to music school. I went on to learn about what it's like to perform. Performing opera is actually really quite miserable. It's not fun. You're covered with really heavy clothing. You usually have some wig pasted onto your head. Sometimes I always had some kind of beard with really thick makeup. And then you're sitting around sweating, waiting to go out onto the stage. But the thing about that performance is it's very well defined. There's always a moment. There's a moment when you step on the stage and you sing. It's clear. It's not practice. It's not anything else. It's performance. Buildings are nothing like that. Buildings are really complicated. So when we talk about building performance, it's actually quite confusing. The reason it's confusing is because we're talking about it in all kinds of different ways. So a lot of us take the word performance to mean benchmarking. Now, this benchmarking is, of course, something that we use in order to define performance. But we know because there are all these benchmarking ordinances around in different cities, we think that because we're so excited that those things are happening, and we should be, because it's about getting information out, but it doesn't mean performance. Energy use intensity does not mean performance. The amount of energy that's used per square foot. That just means the amount of energy used per square foot. If no one's in the building and no energy is used, it doesn't make it a good performing building. But we tend to use energy use intensity as a way to define it. Credit achievement doesn't mean performance. Just because you achieved a credit doesn't mean that the building is performing. We have performance credits in LEED that say, we call it a performance credit, but it's actually for putting in a meter, like an electrical meter or a water meter. But putting the meter there only gets you to the place where you can perform or where you can measure the performance. So the point is that we need to be constantly defining how it is and working on how we define what building performance means. This complexity puts us in a very precarious position and makes it very difficult for us to move forward with this idea of building performance, because we're constantly, not only are we reflecting the complexity of the building, we're also reflecting our inability to communicate with each other in a very defined way about what it is we're trying to say. The LEED Dynamic Plaque is the measuring cup. It's the metronome. It's the tape measurer. It's not the thing we're making. It's just helping us add a dimension to what it is that we're doing in order to more fully have a better conversation about how to define building performance. So let's just walk through this one more time. We have an intent and we have LEED credits. And currently, we're measuring credit achievement. But we don't know the outcome. We aren't measuring the outcome. So how do we know what's happening? What the LEED Dynamic Plaque does for us is it helps us with the intent. We still have all the LEED credits. They aren't going anywhere. We need them. But now we have something that adds a dimension to our work that helps us define and measure the outcome. Let's look at a couple of examples of how this works. So I have an intent to get good, let's say I'm driving a car. I have an intent to get good gas mileage. The similarity to the LEED credits are that I drive a car that it's rated for good gas mileage. The LEED Dynamic Plaque is about driving the car, the thing that's happening in time, and the outcome is a high-performing building. Oops. I should have fixed that slide. The outcome is good gas mileage. Or in a high-performing building, I have an intent to build and operate a high-performing building. I do a lot of great things that are LEED credits. With the LEED Dynamic Plaque, I measure and track them, and then the outcome is a high-performing building. So, how are we doing in our work with LEED and this thing that ties us together and building performance, the thing that happens over time? What I want you to see with this slide is two things. We have two basic types of rating systems. We have existing buildings rating systems, and then we have rating systems for new buildings. Commercial interiors, core and shell, new construction as examples. What you'll see, what we know is, we have no connection to building performance for anything that's built new. We basically say, you're certified and you're done. We simply put the sticker on the car and say, good luck driving. That's not acceptable. We should not be satisfied with that. We're here to guide change. We're here to make the entire change of the building industry occur in a good way. And we know that buildings happen through time. So how can you ignore the fact that the performance of the building is happening over time, but we say you're done? Now, some people think that the way to do this is to say, if you have a new building, you should go through the existing buildings rating system and then be part of the recertification program, which already exists. So we have recertification guidelines that are not balloted credits, but they're actually, it's a system that was put together in 2010, and then we used committees to make it better, but it's not a balloted rating system. The recertification guidelines are not a rating system. The rating systems are the things that we originally certified to. But this particular path, we've already had our answer from the market. It doesn't work. There are very, very, very few projects that have gone from new construction to LEED for existing buildings. The reason is it's challenging, and most people feel like they already have their value of the plaque once they're done. So they don't want to go through another system and then go into recertification. So we need to figure out a really smart way to reach out to those projects and all those people and figure out how to pull them in to make them part of something that's ongoing. The LEED Dynamic Plaque is essentially a method to connect building performance with all LEED projects. And I'm very happy to say, actually, that the LEED Steering Committee passed a resolution in 2011 that all buildings would do this, and just 3 weeks ago they passed another resolution supporting this particular program, the LEED Dynamic Plaque, as the method to tie all buildings to performance. Of course, we know that the real issue is everyone that's on the other side of that line, people that aren't even talking to us about certification. Now, we have a lot of work to do there. The LEED Dynamic Plaque is going to help us with that conversation, but that's in the future. So performance in buildings doesn't happen alone. It doesn't happen with the building manager, and the discussion about performance doesn't happen with a group of small technical people trying to decide what it means. Everyone needs to understand it. But I guarantee you that if I asked everyone in this room to tell me what a kilowatt hour is or what a BTU is, that I would probably have a lot of different answers, or a lot of people that would say, well, I know it's some unit of measure, but I have no idea what it is. So how are we going to have this conversation if we don't know how to even talk about our units of measure? We need to get the conversation out of a very small group of people and have it understood by everybody. And at the building level, we need to be able to have everybody involved. The building manager has to be involved, the occupants have to be involved, the people walking by on the street have to be involved. So how do you do that? To expand the audience, to make it understandable by everybody, it has to be simple. That means it has to be understandable, and it has to be beautiful. It has to be attractive. It has to make you want to be part of it. The LEED Dynamic Plaque is simple and beautiful. We spent a lot of time, in terms of the beauty, looking at how people react to information in lobbies of buildings. We studied about 50 buildings. We stood there and watched monitors in buildings that have very fancy monitors to see how people come and interact with them. And then we looked at LEED plaques. We stood and watched to see, does anyone walk up to a LEED plaque, a static plaque? No. The answer is no. Nobody walks up to a LEED plaque, a static LEED plaque. They walk by them. It's a beautiful thing. If you walk around a lot of cities, some of my favorite are in San Francisco. You just walk down the street, and if you're in LEED, you just keep seeing LEED everywhere. But you don't stop and look at it. This system is designed to draw your attention, and it does it very well. Every place where we've seen a LEED Dynamic Plaque, people walk up to it. They want to be by it. We have a whole series of selfie tweets from the LEED Dynamic Plaque over here in the booth, in the USGBC booth. But the idea is that it's something that pulls you in. Now, in terms of the simple part of it, there's a challenge with this. We created a score. A score is a dimensionless number, and we used 0 to 100. When I say dimensionless, I basically mean it's just numbers. I'm going to show you in a little bit how we come up with some of those numbers, but the number is meant to make a simple understanding so we all can have the conversation about, is it going up or is it going down? Do we understand if performance is working or if it's not working? Are we improving or are we getting worse? Do we have to pay attention or not? The LEED Dynamic Plaque leads to action. I want to tell you some stories of action that we're seeing in projects that are using the LEED Dynamic Plaque. So in the energy category, what you see in these racetracks is on the outside line, it's my score this month. The next line in is my score last month. And the line in the middle is my score the year before, the same period the year before. So what I'm doing is benchmarking my own performance, right? I'm saying, here's how I did, here's how I'm doing, and and I'm either doing better or worse. And I can see it in this very simple way. I don't need a report. So one of the examples in this category is peak shaving. We have a company that is simply turning down, in the summer, they're turning down the turning the temperature up during peak hours, thereby lowering their carbon emissions. It improves their score. In water, we have a company that consolidated dishwashers. So they had a set of 6 dishwashers that were running pretty much constantly, half full. Instead of all the dishwashers running half full, they only have 3 dishwashers running full. Significant water savings, much more than you'd think. This is a commercial interiors project. In waste, we have an example. This is our project in Washington, D.C. It's one of my favorite stories. Our score went down because we did a waste audit and found that people weren't composting. So what our team did, led by Dave Wittick, they put up signs and put up information saying, you need to compost. Here's where you put things in the bin. Here's where things go in the bin. So what happened was people weren't putting... It's not that they didn't know about composting. It's not that they didn't know about recycling. It's not that they didn't care. Some people just weren't paying attention. Now, Dave Wittick had been spending years telling people, you aren't doing this right. No one was paying attention to his emails. But this sign that says, please help us keep our score up, connected everybody. It made everybody feel like we are part of this thing together, and it allowed them to take action together. It pulled everybody into a single thing around a score. In transportation, we have an example of a company whose transportation score was significantly impacted by the fact that they had a relatively small number of people coming a long distance in cars. So most of the people in the office were walking or riding cars or riding their bikes or getting there with mass transportation. But this score is determined by carbon. We're measuring the carbon it takes to get people to and from the building. So what they did was they set up a carpooling program in order to pick up those people that were outside that area. It was only 4 of them, but it significantly improved their score. You know what these stories are? They're really simple stories, right? They're about the silliness, the smallness of what it takes to make a building perform. In the human health, in the human experience category, we have a company that found out, I'll show you what they saw. They found out that some people were cold, and that made them very dissatisfied. So they went and they changed the flow in the VAV boxes where those people were sitting. That allowed them to say that they were satisfied. Their score went up. This score also includes carbon dioxide readings, and it includes volatile organic compound readings. Now, the system itself takes in data, and it builds data on a 12-month cycle. So at the end of 12 months, data is getting kicked out. So at USGBC, our score recently went back down 2 points because our VOC data is out of date. We haven't done a reading in 12 months. So the system is kind of kicking us. It's doing it in a really good way, just saying, come on, give me more information. So we're doing another reading next week just to get our score back up. The system comes with a survey, a built-in cloud-based survey for transportation and satisfaction. The satisfaction survey is simply asking you, are you satisfied or not? We believe that with significant input from this, we'll be able to see what real satisfaction means in buildings for the very first time. Let me show you a couple of the input screens, the data input screens, just to give you a sense of what you can see on the back end if you're a LEED accredited professional or the project manager or someone that's working on the project. So you can go in and type in information into the system, but I hope some of you heard the other day that we announced a partnership with Honeywell, our first partnership, in order to be able to automate those systems, the information into our system, and also the LEED Dynamic Plaque will show on their systems. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So this is a visualization of meters. What this is showing us is the weekends. You see the dips in the meters in the visualization? It's showing us that stuff is going off on the weekend. But here's another meter. What's happening here? It's not going down on the weekend. So what do? Now we know where this meter is. We go and look to see what's happening. In this particular case, people are leaving their printers on. In this particular space, people can plug their printers into an outlet that has a sensor on it. So all it meant was basically helping them figure out how to move their plug from one plug into the plug that had the sensor on it. so those things would automatically go off. These aren't stories of great, intrepid, amazing, fantastic things we're doing to change the world. These are stories of very small actions that we're taking and that are being taken and are being guided by the system in order to make buildings perform better. And what else do you notice about what I'm saying about these stories? I'm not saying a word about credit achievement. I'm not saying anything about documentation. I'm saying that all the energy from this system is going into the building. It's going into building performance. It's helping people focus on where the value is. So we're creating value and lowering cost. That's important for us. You can do the same thing in water. And here's what you can see on the surveys on the back end. This, for example, is telling the building manager the percentage of people that are coming by which mode of transportation. Because in the software, there's a carbon calculator that's telling, that's automatically going into the scoring algorithm. Or here, we're seeing the output of the surveys for satisfaction. The high bar at the end is showing that most people in this space are extremely satisfied. You can see that there's about 18% in the middle that were just on the bottom side of satisfied. So just where the smiley face went down. The second graph down below shows that out of the people that were dissatisfied, 35% of them, the top bar in the graph, were cold. So we're making the invisible actionable. We're basically saying instead of walking around and waiting to have people tell you they're hot or cold, which is the number one thing people tell you in buildings, we're allowing you to find out who's cold and where are they cold so you can do something about it. That's significant. So the challenge with a score is that it can appear to be a black box. So the challenge, there's something that you have to weigh between making something that's completely understood by everybody and then having this thing that appears to be this black box that just is hocus pocus underneath. So I want to show you at the risk of getting too technical in a Master Series session, I decided today I want to show you some of the meat that's underneath the hood. This is the hood underneath the hood of my car. And essentially, I want you to know that I almost never go under the hood. I almost never raise this hood. Now, why is that? Because I really need the car just to get me someplace. That's what I'm really focused on. But, and I also want you to notice that even when you look under the hood, it's pretty darn inaccessible. So what we're using in the system is an algorithm. We're using software and an algorithm to do something that we can't do with our own minds. Now, that's an interesting thought, see, because a computer inherently is something that you use because you can't use your mind to do it. So a computer itself is a black box. But still, I want to look a little closer and help you see what's in the system and how it works. At least a little bit of how it works. So what's included and why? This is a challenging question because we're hearing from a number of people that are saying, wait, my stuff isn't in here. Why not? So what we're looking for is what's common to all the systems. If you look at what we have in LEED, we're giving a mark that says LEED Platinum or LEED Gold or LEED Silver to a new construction project or a commercial interiors project or a healthcare project or schools project or an existing building project or a retail project. We're giving the same mark, but they're quite significantly different things. So what we're looking for in the LEED Dynamic Plaque is what's common to all of them. We aren't looking for what's everything in all of them, because if we did that, we wouldn't possibly have a simple system that's easily understood. We aren't saying, don't certify. You have to certify to use the LEED Dynamic Plaque. You have to use the credits. You have to go through the system. But once you're through the system, we're saying, let's not make you do all the same credits you did before. Let's track performance. Let's set the metronome now. Let's get into a different pace. So we're looking for what's common in the systems. We're asking ourselves, what do we want all LEED buildings to do everywhere? Now, this is our database. This is our first database. There are about 800 projects in here. Each of these dots represents a building, and they're color-coded by certification level. So the green ones are platinum, and yellow is gold, and so on. This graph is organized by LEED credits right now. So it's essentially showing LEED credits on the x-axis and LEED credits on the y-axis. This is our project in Washington, D.C. So we can go in and look and see what projects are scoring. Now, I want to show you just that a couple of the little tools that we built, because this allows us to look at all of these projects related to their LEED points. We can look at them relative to their location, by state or by country. We can look at them relative to their occupancy. You can see the typical LEED building isn't highly occupied. And we could look at them by their floor area. This is again, a typical sampling of what we see from all LEED buildings, because all LEED buildings, the typical building size of a LEED building is about 100,000 square feet. And we've known that for a long time. Now, let me take you into the energy section to show you how it works and how we're determining a score. A building comes into the system, and we look at 3 dimensions to begin with. We add other dimensions later, but we start with 3. We look at square footage, we look at occupancy, and we look at daily carbon emissions. We do the calculation for daily carbon emissions the same way that Energy Star does. So we take eGrid data, and we plug it into the system, and we're basically coming up with a score based on carbon. Now, why is it carbon instead of cost, like we currently have in LEED? Because carbon translates around the world. This is a global score. This is for an energy score to be used everywhere in the world. So we can see how these buildings come together in space relative to these 3 dimensions. Now, let's go down to the corner of the original graph, and we'll expand it a little bit. You can see here that we're looking at a smaller square footage, 100,000 square feet, and a smaller occupancy set, about 750. What I want you to look at is that little cluster of buildings. What we find is that when the buildings come into the software, they cluster next to each other. They find each other in space. Buildings of similar type find themselves in space relative to these dimensions. Now, we take those buildings, or those clusters, and we put them back into 2 dimensions. What you see here along this plot is all the different clusters. Up in the top are the very large office buildings. Down in the bottom are very small commercial interior spaces. So they've found each other in space. We can look at them and we can say, does this make sense? But so far it's making a lot of sense. Then we take these clusters to committees. This is the process we're working on right now. We take these clusters to committees, and committees define what's high performing and what's low performing. So we give them a whole lot of information. We tell them about the building. We tell them what the square footage, the emissions per square foot is, and we tell them what the emissions per occupant is. And the committees have a discussion about what that means. They define building performance. They define it. They give us a sense of what that definition means so we can use the same language all the way through. And that algorithm turns it into a score. So we build a reference set from that of high and low performing. Here what we're seeing in the colors is square footage per occupant, emissions per square foot, and emissions per occupant. So we aren't having a conversation just saying less energy is better, because that means you should only have empty buildings. We're saying, how do you optimize the best use of space, emissions per occupant, with the best use of energy? The committees define high and low, and the algorithm gives us a score. This is my tractor. I love this tractor. It was built in 1946, and right after the war by the Ford Motor Company. And what I really want you to notice about this tractor is it has some very unique characteristics. The simple connection of the crankshaft to the gearbox, to the lifting mechanism in the back, allows for a very easy manufacturing process, which allowed for costs to be significantly reduced. Also, there are only 3 gears. So instead of having 5 gears, this tractor either goes too fast or too slow. It can't do a lot of things. So why did Henry Ford build this tractor like this? Why did he build something so simple at a low cost? Because after the war, you could buy a tractor after the war with 5 gears, with very fancy hydraulics. There was a lot of technology that was available, but there was a huge amount of people that had land that could not afford a tractor. So he built this tractor in order to allow small landowners with very little money the ability to not have to use horses and mules. This tractor transformed agriculture in America after the war, and it did it because of its simplicity. I want to welcome my friend Mahesh Ramanujan.
It'll be nice to have the LEED Dynamic Plaque slide there. Great. I love the LEED Dynamic Plaque. This is beautiful. You know, this is something that I get excited whenever Scott talks about it, because I believe this is the next big thing after LEED. So please pay attention to it. But what I love about this is, what everyone loves about this is simple. Why simplicity is such an important topic today. Just take a look at the next slide. The transformation that has happened in the past decade, particularly led by these companies, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Google, have one common criteria, which is simplicity. And if you had attended Gami's session yesterday, he said, no one resists simplicity. I love that quote. We know buildings are complex. You know that. Building performance is driven by many attributes, and all these need to be carefully measured, managed, to determine whether a building is performing or not. Along with us, and independently, many folks are working on a dashboard. So I think you've seen enough of dashboards in the last 5 years. But I'm sorry to say this, that none of these dashboards make sense to a common man. If you go to a hotel lobby, you see pages and pages of dashboards, but I have never made a sense out of it, and I'm an engineer. Because, one, they don't make sense. Second, they don't drive behavioral change. So the LEED Dynamic Plaque is the solution, because it provides a compelling visual story, and it's like your credit score. You can remember it. It's pretty easy. If you don't remember the exact score, but you remember the range. So every day you get to know, if you walk into a building, if that building is performing or not. It has been now 2 years. Scott has been leading this project. It's been exciting, and we have made great progress. If you recall, we announced this vision in Greenbuild 2012. And today, I'm happy to share, by the end of this year, we will have 100 active LEED Dynamic Plaques around the world. So it's like how we started with LEED. It started trickling down, but now it has got a certain level of inertia and momentum. But what is more exciting is, this year, during the travel around the world and within the United States, Scott and me and the team have picked 12,000 active interests about the LEED Dynamic Plaque. And our goal, and we believe this is going to be an easy goal to achieve, is 2,000 LEED Dynamic Plaques by the end of next year. So you can see it's a good growth from getting the market to understand performance, because we have a simple solution. Now, our community is always brutal on us. So you can see some of the reactions that we had from the 12,000 active participants. So 3 reactions. The first reaction is, wow, we agree. The second reaction, tell me more, our team is ready to help you. The third one is my favorite, it's wrong. All responses are welcome. This is the beauty of our movement. You know, in the last 5 years working with Scott, I've learned one thing. He keeps telling me this again and again and again. Mahesh, you don't understand. We thrive on this. This uncertainty, this dynamic tension, this push-pull is what makes this movement special. So we are excited that we can get these 3 finite responses, and our goal is to go after the third category and bring them along. Now, USGBC is 21 years old, LEED is 14 years old. We have certified 3.3 billion square feet. We have 11 billion square feet of registered and certified space. And of course, GBCI certifies 2 million a day. This is the soundbite we put on a daily basis in the marketplace. Now I'm done talking about it. It's very, very static metric, according to me personally. Our vision should be big and bold. 100 billion square feet of certified space in next 3 years. How do we get there? The greatest opportunity is in the space that has not been certified. How do we make GBCI go 10 times faster? Because today we are talking about 2 million, and if you have to go to 100 billion, you can do the math. Probably I have to grow GBCI 10 times the size, which means we need the driver from the market to drive that acceleration, and that cannot be attained. So the only way to do it is through technology, transformation, and platforms. So you can see we're shifting the gears a little bit. That is very intentional. That is part of our intentional strategy, because without shifting the model, we cannot keep aspiring to drive market transformation. On the rating system side, we have done a very good job. We went from 1.0 to 2.0 to 3.0. Now V4 is out there. People are testing it. People are complaining. People are giving the same reaction to it. They are saying it's wrong. They have said it's wrong. But they are saying we're getting ready for it. In the same way, we want to re-engineer our model for market transformation and our methods. And I believe LEED Dynamic Plaque, besides being a simpler, elegant, real-time tool for building performance, it is also a reflection of our mindset to change our speed. What do I mean by that? After working on building performance for 5 years, why this sudden breakthrough? Why this breakthrough? Because we changed our approach. We took the DARPA approach. No one in this room needs an introduction to DARPA, the DoD agency that has delivered fantastic technologies to the marketplace, most importantly for mass consumption, like the internet. So we took 3 simple steps. Number 1, we needed a team of high caliber talent. The mathematicians, the building specialists, the people who understand behavioral change, and the people who understood LEED, and the emphasis and the opportunity LEED provided. The second, we had to authorize the team to work independently from the mainstream organization. Third, we challenged the team to say, don't come back and ask us for 10 years. We don't have it. You need to deliver this in 3 weeks, 3 months, and 3 years. In the same order, 3 weeks to deliver a prototype, 3 months to deliver a robust solution, and in 3 years to show that it can perform in the market. And this is not about creating silos. This is about bringing focus into an organization. Because all of you know, the one rare challenge that we always have during the day, the constant challenge, is how to maintain focus. Because our daily routines are so consuming. And it is not surprising to me at all that our team could deliver when we commissioned them to go and work in that construct. The DARPA approach works, definitely works within USGBC and our community. But also what is exciting to me is, in addition to the LEED performance tool, we've been also able to enter a new domain, an upcoming domain called the Internet of Everything, because that physical device is a perfect example. It's an ideal example of what an Internet of Everything device is going to look like in the future, because it has got the SMAC, the social, mobile, analytics, and the cloud. And it looks exactly like the Nest. And of course, your upcoming iWatch is going to look exactly like that. And we didn't steal the design from Apple. And I can assure you, without this DARPA approach, we would have done a great job of groupthink, which means we would have been group sync. Moving tentatively is not transformation. Life is about impact. We are here to make an impact. Our mission is about impact. And the key requirement is we have to become agile, we have to become bold, and we have to fail fast, because we need to test our ideas in the real time. So I can make the buildings go faster in terms of construction, but we can definitely make the technologies and the tools that's available to people to go faster. Of course, we cannot claim to be the smartest in the room. We have a long way to go on that aspect. But we know, this audience knows, our movement knows, we like to be the first. We want to be the first. We have seen the first, and we have been the first, because we always want to be the first. And as I said before, this dynamic tension in the marketplace, we love it. We love those pushbacks. It's fantastic, because it forces us to think better and stronger. But on a lighter note, we will not allow the blockbuster video to re-enter back to the living room, because we all love Netflix, and I'm glad HBO and CBS are catching up. Thank you for your passion and leadership.
Thank you, sir. And I want to thank Mahesh for his leadership. This project would not have happened at all without him supporting it and finding ways to make it happen. Before I go on any further, I just want to ask the team that has worked on this so hard for a long time, part of the team, to stand up. Gretchen, Mike, Gautami, Gami, if you're here, Dave, Mark, if you guys would stand up just so everyone can see who's been working on this project. And so, yeah, Taryn. So we're lucky that we get work that has meaning. We're lucky that we have purpose in what we do. My grandfather never got to buy a tractor. He never got to buy something that allowed him to not use horses, but he became a minister by the time that had happened. We are defining building performance. We're finding a way to speak a language together that allows us to transform the building industry by knowing what we're talking about and measuring and providing feedback to get to the same solutions. This is a staff. These 5 lines here are not the 5 lines of the dynamic plaque. They're simply a staff of music. The staff of music is a platform. It means nothing by itself. But if you add bars, you then have a measure. Once you have a measure, you can add a time signature. The time signature defines the measure. In this case, 4/4 means each measure gets 4 beats, and the quarter note gets the beat. So now we can all start to sing the same song. Now I know how to get a group of people doing the same thing. I can do that because I can measure it and communicate it. Leoncavallo's opera Pagliacci has a fantastic aria that many of us know. Pagliacci's a clown, and he's in desperate straits. He's incredibly sad because he finds that his lover is with someone else. But he knows that he has to still perform. So he sings this aria where he says, "Recitar mentre preso dal delirio non so più quel che dico e quel che faccio, eppure dopo sforzati, bah, sei tu forse un uomo? Tu sei pagliaccio. I won't sing the rest. We make the music. We can only do it together. We can only do it in the same beat, speaking the same language, measuring, understanding how we change the world together. Thank you very much.